Have you ever wondered what would happen if Shanks decided to step up and train Luffy personally alongside Rayleigh after Marineford? How would the New World react to a Luffy who spends 2 straight years being shaped by a Yonko and the Pirate King's former right-hand man? And most importantly, would this kind of power be enough to take him to the very top without losing that core essence that makes him the future Pirate King? Before we dive into how this training would totally flip Luffy's journey upside down, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Here, we explore the craziest what-if stories in the anime world. All right, let's jump back to the exact moment everything started to change. Well, in this scenario, everything would shift right after the Marineford War ended. Luffy would be completely wrecked, physically and emotionally, hiding out in Amazon, Lily recovering from Ace's death. But Shanks, knowing how much this kid means to the future of the world, would decide to hold off on heading back to the New World for a bit. He needed to see with his own eyes how Luffy was holding up. At the exact same time, someone else would be having the exact same thought. Rayleigh would swim all the way to Amazon Lily specifically to pitch the famous 2-year training time skip. And this is where the story changes forever. When the Red-Haired Pirates' ship pops up on the horizon, Rayleigh would be completely caught off guard, totally not expecting to run into Shanks of all people. The two men, sharing decades of history riding with Roger, would end up face to face for the first time in forever. Shanks would explain he didn't come to pick a fight or claim anything. He just wanted to get a read on Luffy's condition up close. Rayleigh, on the other hand, would lay out his plan to take the kid away, to train in total isolation. After a nostalgic catch-up, reminiscing about the good old days with their former captain, they'd reach the same grim conclusion. The New World is more dangerous than ever, and the Marines are utterly ruthless post-war. Standard training just wouldn't cut it for what's coming. That's when Shanks makes a decision that changes the game. Instead of taking off and leaving Luffy solely in Rayleigh's hands, he decides to stay. 2 full years, side by side with the Dark King, teaching the kid who would one day wear the very same straw hat he rocked for so long. Now, you're probably wondering how this would even be possible, seeing as Shanks is a Yonko with an entire crew to run. The answer is simple. He temporarily hand over command of his fleet to Beckman, his most seasoned first mate, while he clocks out for a bit. After all, if there's anyone Shanks trusts blindly to hold down the fort, it's him. And so the dual training would begin, split between Rayleigh's calm fundamentals and a Yonko's raw experience. Rayleigh would handle the basics, teaching Luffy how to activate and control observation, armament, and Conqueror's Haki. He'd also help him refine his gears so they don't tear his body apart, just like in the original canon. Shanks, on the other hand, would take on a much more specific and brutal curriculum, the advanced mastery of Conqueror's Haki. He would teach Luffy how to coat every single strike in Conqueror's Haki, how to use it continuously without passing out from exhaustion, and how to apply it for both offense and defense, something even Rayleigh hadn't mastered to that degree. It would be 2 solid years of pure suffering, crashing down and getting back up, with 2 masters pushing him twice as hard. For the first few months, Luffy would barely be able to keep Conqueror's Haki active for more than a few seconds before blacking out, and Shanks wouldn't hold back. He'd mercilessly make him try again and again until he got it right. Bit by bit, Luffy would learn the difference between simply unleashing power and actually controlling it. Shanks would also use this time to help Luffy process his grief over Ace, slowly shaping him into having a much more mature, unshakable mindset, without ever crushing the upbeat spirit that makes Luffy who he is. He would patiently teach him that an emperor never hesitates and never underestimates an opponent, no matter how weak they might look. The result of these 2 years would be downright terrifying. Luffy wouldn't focus so heavily on Gear 4 right out of the gate. Instead, he'd prioritize maxing out his base Haki first. His Gear 2 and Gear 3 forms, when stacked with advanced Conqueror's Haki, would become highly lethal weapons. He'd walk out of that training with the tactical coldness of a true emperor, but still keeping that carefree vibe that defines him. When Luffy rolls back into Sabaody, the impact is immediate. Just his presence alone suffocates the room. He doesn't even need to dodge a pacifista. One single punch, coated in black Haki with red lightning trailing off it, instantly obliterates the machine. The Marines around him are left paralyzed with fear, totally clueless as to what they just witnessed. Zoro, upon reuniting with his captain, would instantly sense that something had fundamentally shifted, even if he couldn't put his finger on exactly what it was. Down in Fishman Island, the threat of Hody Jones turns into a total joke. The army of radicalized fishmen he leads is completely swept away by Luffy's refined control of Conqueror's Haki, dropping the overwhelming majority of them all at once. A desperate Hody downs his steroids, but Luffy just one-shots him. Using the basics of Ryo he picked up from both masters, he wrecks Hody's weapons from the inside out without even laying a finger on him. Shirahoshi and King Neptune watch the whole thing in sheer disbelief. The entire island realizes, right then and there, that this kid is no longer just a promising rookie. The alliance with Law and Punk Hazard plays out pretty much the same, with Caesar getting dropped in seconds. But Dressrosa is where the real impact hits. Doflamingo, who is used to playing with his food, quickly realizes he made a fatal error underestimating this version of Luffy. When the two clash for the first time, Luffy's Conqueror's Haki is so unbelievably overwhelming that Doflamingo's strings literally start snapping just from the air pressure alone. Luffy doesn't even need to fall back on the massive stamina drain of Gear 4. He fights mostly in Gear 2, but every single punch carries the weight of a true emperor. The fight is short and brutal. The birdcage barely has time to threaten the country because Luffy tears through the string defenses with a Conqueror-infused Red Hawk, knocking the Warlord out cold and sending shockwaves through the entire underworld at an insane speed. Law, watching from a distance, would hardly believe the absurd power gap compared to the first time he saw Luffy fight, muttering to himself that he definitely picked the right ally. In Whole Cake Island, the scrap with Cracker is wrapped up fast. Luffy shatters the biscuit armor with pure Conqueror's Haki instead of having to stuff his face with food. But the absolute game changer is the showdown with Katakuri in the Mirror World. Remember, Katakuri has future sight. In the original story, Luffy took a beating for hours before getting the hang of it. Here, thanks to his brutal boot camp with Shanks, he already knows the theory on how to counter future predictions. He uses blinding speed and attacks that cover multiple dodge routes at once, backed by Conqueror's Haki. This forces Katakuri to go 100% from minute 1. The fight turns into a pure clash of Haki, trading punches that would drop any standard commander dead on impact. Right in the heat of battle, Luffy finally learns how to actively use future sight in practice, completely leveling the playing field. Katakuri falls, but massive respect is born on the spot. Still panting, Katakuri acknowledges that this kid already carries the aura of the man who will become the Pirate King. Now, this is where things get really crazy. When Kaido shows up in Wano in his dragon form and blasts the castle, an enraged Luffy charges in without a second of hesitation. In the canon story, Kaido knocked Luffy out cold with a single Thunder Bagua. This time around, Luffy blocks it head on, clashing his own Conqueror-infused attack directly against the Yonkos. The sky literally splits down the middle in their very first encounter. Even the Akazaya 9 are left speechless. But look, even though Luffy wounds Kaido and tanks his hits way longer than expected, Kaido is still built different when it comes to raw durability. In the end, Kaido takes the win strictly because Luffy gasses out and our boy still ends up in Udon prison. But this isn't a setback. In prison, Luffy doesn't have to learn Ryuo from scratch. He just sharpens what he already knows, blending the technique almost flawlessly with a focus on internal destruction. The raid on Onigashima becomes a much more balanced dogfight right from the jump. Luffy and Kaido trade blow for a long time, to the point where Kaido admits mid-fight that it's been ages since anyone pushed him this hard. Yamato, watching up close, would feel genuine hope for the first time that this kid might actually be Joy Boy. When a CP0 agent interferes and pushes Luffy to the brink of death, his Devil Fruit awakening finally triggers. Except this time, Gear 5 pops off on top of a Haki foundation perfectly forged by two top-tier masters. Kaido's defeat stops feeling like plot armor, and instead feels like the natural outcome for a warrior molded by the biggest names of one era to kickstart the next. With Wano wrapped up, Luffy is increasingly recognized as a rising emperor, and his bounty skyrockets to numbers that make the world government sweat bullets. As a Yonko in the making, Luffy handles the threats on Egghead with ruthless efficiency. When Lucci drops his awakened form, Luffy doesn't even bother messing around in Gear 5. Mirroring exactly what Shanks would do, he intercepts Lucci in Gear 2 and drops him in a single hit, completely shattering the assassin's ego. Shortly after, Kizaru touches down. Light speed is no longer a mystery to Luffy. He goes toe-to-toe with the Admiral using Gear 4 Snake Man, infused with Conqueror's Haki, dealing actual damage without blowing through his stamina. Gear 5 only makes an appearance at the very end as a quick finisher. Right in the middle of this chaos, the Gorosei roll up, and this is where the premise delivers its biggest payoff. When Saturn and the other elders move in, Luffy's Haki instantly breaks the paralysis caused by their powers. During the escape, that same Conqueror's Haki directly resonates with Emmet, the ancient robot. Together, they unleash generations of stored energy fused with Luffy's power, creating a shockwave so massive that it blasts the Gorosei straight back to Mary Geoise and wipes out dozens of naval forces. Bonnie, watching all this unfold, is left completely speechless at the sheer scale of his power. The newspapers across the globe plaster his face next to the words the world government fears most: historic threat. Kaido and Katakuri already recognize the aura of the future Pirate King in him, and somewhere far away, Shanks and Rayleigh watch from a distance, knowing they helped forge the dawn of a new era, even if they'd never admit it out loud to each other. Make sure to let me know in the comments if you want a part 2 showing what would happen when Imu decides to hunt Luffy down personally. Smash that like button and type part 2 down below. Also, leave your story ideas in the comments for upcoming videos, because your suggestion might just be the next one featured on the channel. I'm wrapping things up here, but remember, I'm Shoyo and I'm out.